Good afternoon. This is eNCA. I'm Dan Moyane. It's about 21 minutes to 3 o'clock on this mild Saturday afternoon, 18 July here in Johannesburg. Welcome and thanks for joining us as we begin our focus on the 18th Annual Nelson Mandela Lecture. This year's lecture comes at a time when the world is facing its toughest challenge in decades. The new coronavirus, or COVID-19, has changed everything. It's exposed the world's fault lines and weaknesses. As the world battles COVID-19 and looks for solutions for a better future for all, who better than the Secretary General of the United Nations to deliver the 18th Annual Nelson Mandela Lecture at the invitation of the Nelson Mandela Foundation? Antonio Guterres made the announcement of the upcoming lecture on the United Nations website. As we start our focus here on eNCA this afternoon, let us listen to Guterres as he sets the scene for the lecture and thanks the Nelson Mandela Foundation for inviting him.
It's truly an honor to be invited to deliver the 18th Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture. Madiba was a moral giant of the 20th century. And his timeless legacy continues to guide us in the 21st. For me, he was also a profound personal inspiration for justice, dignity and equality. This year's lecture takes place at a time when the world faces an unprecedented test as the COVID-19 pandemic threatens everyone, everywhere. The world must unite to protect lives and ease suffering. As always, at times of crisis, the vulnerable suffer first and worst. But we must also return to progress by recovering better. Even before the pandemic, inequality was a global plague. Today, this injustice is clear to all. Nelson Mandela devoted his life to fighting it. That is why I will devote my upcoming lecture to the theme, Tackling the Inequality Pandemic, a new social contract for a new era. I plan to look ahead to what we must do to address the world's fragilities and build a fair globalization. I thank the Nelson Mandela Foundation for this opportunity, and I look forward to gathering virtually with the people of South Africa and others from around the world to discuss our shared pursuit of a better world for all. Thank you.
That's Antonio Guterres. He's, of course, the Secretary General of the UN. We're at about 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock this afternoon, South African time, he'll be delivering the 18th Annual Nelson Mandela Lecture, that video courtesy of the United Nations. And joining me now is the Regional Coordinator for the United Nations in South Africa, Ms. Nardos Bekele-Thomas. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time this afternoon. Significant day indeed for you as the United Nations. What is the significance for Antonio Guterres to deliver this 18th Annual Nelson Mandela Lecture?
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm glad to be here. Happy International Mandela Day. You know, this is a great day for the world. The significance of our Secretary General, who shares the values of Nelson Mandela and who is committed to the Sustainable Development Goals and social justice, comes at a time when the world, rich and poor, are confronted by an unprecedented pandemic, as you know, which calls for deep thinking of what went wrong in the past in terms of our failures to address the biggest threat to humanity: poverty, inequality, both from the basic human rights to social services, to food, and to all freedoms, political, social, and economic rights, but also failures to address the poverty of the minds, which is the legacy of oppression and constriction, to think positively, to think creatively and deeply. Madiba, as you know, went out of lockdown after liberating himself from the poverty of the mind, and he was able to correct the wrongs with the rights and not wrongs. A period which reminds us every day we wake up, you know, of gratitude to breathe, to have a home and food to eat. But a period more than ever that reminds us that we are much more privileged. And a period, like what my Secretary General always says, is really to think of others and to give And you know, so, you know, there is so much significance to it. This is a period where, you know, the world is, you know, threatened on one hand by this need for being together, but on the other hand, there is a threat to multilateralism. There is a threat to coming together and working together. And I think Secretary General's remarks today and his lecture would really be, you know, something that would inspire the world to come together and to be together using the values that Mandela has put forth to us. These are just the blueprints of you know, our humanity coming together as human beings, but also, you know, the Secretary General, I think, would just give us, like he said at his introductory remarks, which we just heard, you know, that there is a need for a social compact. There is a need for a social contract, nationally, regionally, you know, and also, you know, globally. And also there is a need for a global order to come together and to resolve the ills that we inherited from the past. Yeah, now, but, you know, that with the emerging also pandemics that will be coming. So, you know, this is a very important thing which lay the agenda for the coming decade and the future.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned there a number of things and that people can look forward to hearing about from the Secretary General. And we know from that clip we played from him as we started our focus coverage on the 18th Nelson Mandela Lecture in eNCA that it's going to be about how the world can tackle the inequality pandemic. And you said that he's calling for a new social contract for a new era. That's what he's going to be lecturing us about. But we do have the 2030 Development Sustainable Goals that we still have to meet, and that's 10 years away. But it looks like the closer we get to 2030, we see more inequality gaps around the world, more poverty, and COVID-19 has exposed them so starkly.
Very true, very true. In actual terms, what the pandemic has done to this world is to really expose our failures, our deficiencies of the past. I mean, if we had addressed, you know, all the universal health concerns, you know, the universal health in actual terms was the agenda that we had set from the MDG, the Millennium Development Goals, and then carried over to the Sustainable Development Goals. And if we had addressed all those inequality issues, the poverty issues before, we would have been in a better position to handle and manage the pandemic. And today, all the rich and the poor countries are facing this pandemic in a bitter and, you know, in this way because of the fact that we didn't do our jobs properly. And I think, you know, the pandemic, be as it is, as bad as it is, it has shown us that we have to do better. And that's where the building back better comes. But you cannot just build back by just talking. We have to take the measures that are necessary, the policy measures, the strategies that are necessary to make sure that we build back better in earnest. Otherwise, you know, there will be worse situations that this world will be facing.
You look at how,
so,
ma'am,
you know,
we need to build, ma'am, sorry, we need to build better in earnest for the future. And you look at how much inequality and discrimination, and we know that women, for example, on the continent here, bear the brunt of all kinds of social ills, including in South Africa with gender-based violence. That's all part of the huge problem where we have failed as a society. Are you hopeful that if what the Secretary General is talking about, and he's going to lecture us about this afternoon in the Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture, about a new social contract, that will be able to really shift the needle, as the saying goes?
We just hope so. We just hope so. We can only clap with two hands, as you know. And multilateralism and solidarity both global, national, is very important. For example, in this country where we're talking, whole society, whole government approach, this is a new way of thinking. And we have to really do it that way. I mean, not only governments can do this thing alone, but we need to have the whole society, private sector, civil society organizations, international organizations coming, to play together, a role in this thing. I mean, we are all in it together, and we need to understand that, and that's why he is going to. I'm sure, knowing him. Because I see his vision, and we have got a very good visionary leader, and through his vision I see that he's going to set the agenda for world global solidarity, but also set the agenda for countries to understand the fact that they cannot do it alone. They have to do it with society at large, and in a different system and way and mechanism where results are most important. Talk less, act more.
Talk less, act more. You look at some of the actions currently of the developed world as we're all battling to fight COVID-19. They've got a lot of resources. And you look at Europe, for example, that built its resources on the back of colonialism, which was a brutal era in the world. And you just wonder if people are willing to give, because it looks like they're, even today, just looking after themselves.
Certainly. But, on the other hand, I keep on telling, in my 40 years, development, as development practitioner, I keep on saying, yes, but we have to take, our destiny in our hands. We have to change the systems. We're still working using the systems of colonialism, and we cannot change unless we change. We have a structural transformation, and we just bring our own homegrown, systems and mechanisms that work for us. So we have to liberate ourselves. And that's why I say, we have to liberate ourselves, not only from the physical things that we see, but also our minds. The liberation of our minds is very critical and very important. We have to look deep, and we have to look, to think creatively, and we have to bring about transformative change. And we have to be citizen-oriented. It's with our people that we can liberate ourselves and our countries. It's not just with a couple of people that we can work with, but the whole society working together. Very important. We have to change ourselves deeply into ourselves and into our systems, and liberate ourselves.
Yeah, the line, connectivity to you there, ma'am, is giving us a bit of a problem, just as you were clarifying how it's important for us to have a mind shift, to change and think deeply, like to free our minds in terms of tackling the issues. And I guess on the other side, some people will say, let's stop the blame game. Let's see what we can do together. But as a world, basically, we are on one planet. We are on one boat. We still need one another. There's a need for human solidarity. And we need to see more of that, I guess.
Oh, yes, certainly. We have to have that solidarity, but, with our own strategies. Our governments should focus on citizen-oriented programs, citizens first. We have to know how to be, public servants. The word servants is very important. So, we really need to change the way we work. We have to have a whole society, whole government that we have been preaching, and we have to really walk the talk in that manner. But in the meantime, like I said, we cannot just work on our own in a silo. We need the world to work with. But using our own strategies, what is in it with that for us? We cannot work on people's strategies, but, we have to have also our strategies.
So a new social contract required to tackle all these inequalities and poverty. It's a message we're likely to hear this afternoon in the Nelson Mandela Lecture to be delivered by the Secretary General Antonio Guterres of the United Nations. But can I just bring in something while I still have you, ma'am, as we're building up? We live in today's world, which is now being known as the fourth industrial revolution. Digital divide is still big, and you still feel that most of the developing countries, are like catching up. Look current with COVID-19, homeschooling is not an option for a majority of children from poor communities in the world. They don't have data, they don't have devices. And that's going to be part of a solution, surely, that we need to find for the world going forward, that we bring everybody on stream.
Yeah. We should look, to ourselves, examine ourselves, and build our capacities, because, in a digital world, this digital world could deepen the inequality that we are in unless we take, action and build the infrastructures that we require.
Okay, ma'am. Nardos Bekele-Thomas, Regional Coordinator of the United Nations in South Africa. Thank you very much. I'm sure you, like many of us, are looking forward to shortly after 3 o'clock to hear from the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who's going to be addressing, of course, the 18th Annual Nelson Mandela Lecture.